Our guest this morning is seated. Professor Kivutha Kibwana has been here before, former governor of Makueni County, but also an academic, and is our guest this hour. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning. I'm really very happy to be in the Situation Room. I hope I won't be situated.
Well, of things that we can promise are few and far between, but we're very happy that you're here this morning. And as we start this show and you start every hour, we look at proverbs from the African continent. CT goes around mining proverbs, and then he will give us his proverb for this hour. Tell us what you think about it, what it means to you, and how you would interpret that. Okay.
We are in the Republic. No, let me start again. We're the People's Republic of Mozambique. And the proverb is a simple one. A reflection cannot see itself.
That's very deep. Because sometimes when, as human beings, we are doing things and maybe we are not doing them right, we may not ourselves appreciate so. Because it's not easy to countenance yourself and be able to say, this is not right, this is wrong. And even when people tell you, especially when politicians are told, they deny, they're in denial. So I think it's you allow others to really tell you what they think about you, what is wrong, what you can correct. I think that's a very deep proverb.
Thank you.
Well, there you go.
Yes, there you go.
So there's a reflection of society. I guess maybe we can start off with, recently we saw that, you've maybe changed hats a little bit. What have you been up to, Prof?
Many things. Many things, and particularly in the youth space. I recently teach at Daystar University. Waiting for a master's program so that I can get involved in that. Beginning of next year, I listen to what young people are saying in these X spaces. Sometimes I sit down with them and I want to know, what they're doing, what they're up to. I talk a lot to many fora. I do a bit of research because when I was in politics, it was not easy to research the things that I really like elections, devolution, constitutional law, anti-corruption issues, many things. So actually, I'm beginning to wonder whether my life is not even more full than it was when I was in politics. That kind of worries me sometimes.
But why should it? And it's something that you have chosen. I mean, it's not as though you didn't choose politics.
Yes.
But let me perhaps take a few steps back.
Yes.
A university professor.
Yes.
Then an activist in change.
Yes.
Then gets into politics.
Yes.
Is this how you had planned your life? Is this how you had seen your life evolving?
Not really. I don't think that we can be able to quote mechanically plan our lives. Some things happen. For example, I didn't really want to be a governor. I thought I was going to be chair of the Commission on the Implementation of the Constitution. But those days, to get that position, there was to be concurrence between Honorable Raila Odinga and President Kibaki. And although I think I did reasonably well in the interview, there wasn't that concurrence. So then President Kibaki, after we kind of now talked, he told me, okay, it looks like that didn't work. And that's when I thought about being governor. So actually I became member of parliament because I thought the constitution at that juncture had reached the point where the decision was going to be made in parliament. So I was kind of following the constitution from my civil society and the leadership of NCC.
You wanted to be, should we say, in the room when these important matters were actually being discussed.
Yes.
And you wanted your voice to be registered
Precisely.
in that group. So you hadn't planned to be an MP, not really.
It was not it was not quite intentional because it was still the same stream of following the Constitution, so that as I thought it was going to be concluded, I would be part of that exercise. But then from 2002-03 to 2010, it took a long time.
These things take a long time. So the focus was the Constitution, and you were looking at the direction the entire process was taken and what needed to be done where, and you examined what you thought the contribution and that of the group and the voices that you represented would be, and so you took yourself in that direction.
That's correct.
Okay. Would I be right in then calling you an accidental politician?
Well, I think from a secular point of view, yes. But God plans things for people. So I think somehow God planned that I would make that journey.
And at every stage, you got the impression He had prepared you for it by what it is that had preceded what you're doing.
Precisely. But of course, you also prepare yourself. You try to prepare yourself when you get into an assignment. Like I would imagine, when you come to Situation Room, you must prepare yourself for all manner of people who would come before you.
I asked the question because now that you are working with young people, that is actually the point of my question.
Yes.
Would you be of the opinion that everything that has preceded what you are now doing has been worthwhile and has given you a pivotal point from which you can address the matters that will arise from the position that you are now in?
Yes. Actually, let me even add another little point.
Yes.
When now I realized that I was going to kind of be a governor, I also went to theology school for about 3 years for a master's because I thought I wanted to do even now governance at that level differently.
Yes.
So that for me, it was ministry. So, God helps you to prepare in places He takes you, I believe. But also, the question you've directly asked, I started teaching at the University of Nairobi as a lecturer at 23. And even those days, some of the students were older than I was.
In those days,
and even I would see the girls eyeing me.
Wondering if you know what you're doing.
But I was a responsible teacher. So from that time, therefore, you're with youth.
Yes.
You're one of them.
Yes.
And you're teaching. So in that space, you learn a lot and you empathize. Then even within civil society, that was also a time to mentor, the young people who are in that space. I'm also fortunate because most of the senior lawyers in this country, whether it's in the Supreme Court, where, most of them, actually, I think most of them, if not all of them, were my students, even the attorney generals and so on. So I had time not just to teach, but to mentor and to be with the young people to discuss and so on, because I thought you just don't teach the book. You teach more than the book.
Yeah.
So again, when, I worked for President Kibaki as his advisor, I was an advisor for constitutional, parliamentary, and youth affairs. The first youth ministry under his watch were issues we discussed and thought that there was necessity for such a ministry, and I think the first minister was Kuti. Again, when I come to be governor in Makueni, I'm very much interested in continuing to work with young people, address youth issues, so that becomes important for me. And even in terms of research, the minor research, not deep research, because as I said, as a politician, it was not always easy. But also when I wrote in the media, in the papers, I wrote several, articles on this particular question, continued to give talks on this particular question. So it's something dear to my heart because I believe without a focus on young people on the continent, actually we are going nowhere.
It's interesting because there's been a lot of youth-centered political drive over the last 4 months. And of course, we can't run away from the happenings, especially with the protests, which were largely, younger minds coming into the political arena. Many are already saying that it was not a time, there has not been a time where there has been so much youth-centric focus on the country's politics. How would you see that direction is going today? I mean, there is no question that there probably will come about political change in the next few years. Mm-hmm. But what trajectory is it taking, and is it going down a proper path?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think actually in not only Africa, but a lot of the world, fundamental change is normally instigated by young people. Whether you're talking about China, when there was the Tiananmen Square, whether you're talking about the Arab Spring, even in our own country, most of the people who fought for Mau Mau, Dedan Kimathi and company, were very young people in their 20s, mostly in their 30s. When you look at even Kibaki, Matiba, as they come into positions at independence, they were in their 30s, even ministers at their 30s. So that tells you that young people in the Mau Mau movement, even in the 90s, the people who were at the forefront of agitating for the constitution were also, young people. And as even now, this third wave of pushing for change in the country, again, it is decidedly being led by very young people. In a way, one can say it was kind of spontaneous. You couldn't see it coming. Of course, there were the rumbles. There were, people saying that everything is going south. Everything is not right. But the way in which this uprising, sometimes others call it revolution, manifested itself, it was unexpected, so that even the powers that be, were caught pants down. Now, of course, the young people themselves may not have been very prepared. Sometimes you do something in life and you say, wow, is this me? Is this me? And some of them began to kind of feel that, so we are here. We can do things. And you get a group that does not know the ways of the political people, the senior people, and they begin to get kind of compromised. But the others call them out, so that when you get compromised, you are called out, and you are they cancel you. You are cancelled. But I think that what happened, if it is not addressed in terms of the root issues, I don't think we have heard the end of the story. And I have seen them trying to do some civic education, going out there in the X spaces, even going physically to many places in the country, doing their civic education. Some of them are saying that they really want to become leaders from MCA up to president, which I think is a good thing. Of course, the political parties in Kenya are properties of people, and when you go into them, you have to be admitted, and you have to be told that here there is a culture, there is what we do, and so if you want to come here, you must be of good behavior. And of course, you are taught bad behavior.
By those who are in the system already.
By those who are in the systems already, most of those parties. So I would imagine that the young people would have to look for their own political formations. Of course, others might go into the formations that exist, but I think it will be a question, and I can see a bit of that forming, of those people who really want different. to kind of come together, those young people, and I think they may be discussing those issues. And if generation, Z, millennials, those two, and X, and then other people who are older, like myself, can be supporting cast.
You talk about if you want different, then should you do different? That a different kind of leadership then requires a different kind of operation, and hasn't that been the cry, especially that we've seen it compacted over the last couple of months, that those who might want to be in leadership in the future and are younger, that they want to see things done differently. But then there was always this prescription that said, no, you must have a leader. You can't just be, all over the place. You have to have some kind of structure. And if you want to be a movement that is going to make some kind of change or some kind of difference, you're going to have to do it the way it's always been done. And so they won't resonate with this, because they say in order to be different, you must do different. But they're being asked to do it the same way that it's been done over time.
If you do the same way, you will get the same bad results.
Right.
And actually, when I came here, I was even preparing to also, give a quote because I knew there was going to be a proverb, and I was going to have a quote to,
please,
to say.
Why don't you proceed with your quote?
To say,
yes.
And this is Edmund Buke, actually two short quotes. Tell me what are the prevailing sentiments that occupy the minds of your young men and women, and I will tell you what is to be the character of the next generation. And I'm believing that the young people now who are rising up in Kenya, on the continent, their character will be different. Just what you asked. And the Sister Katerina Kagia says, to lose one's youth is to have lost the most valuable thing in life. And I believe so. I believe youth is very precious. I believe it's a formative period. I believe if you invest well in that youth, in your youthful life, then you can be of good benefit to your society, of course, yourself, family, society. And again, to answer your question even more directly, there is the ex-founder of Visa International, D-Hawk. And when he's defining leadership, it's very interesting. He says, the very heart and soul of the matter of leadership, if you seek to be a leader, invest 50% of your time leading yourself, your own purpose, ethics, principles, motivation, and conduct. And then you invest something which is very interesting and not easy, 20% leading those with authority over you, and another 15% leading your peers, and then 15% leading what you believe is your followership, so that they can do exactly, what I have said before. So I think one of the most important things that the Kenyan youth, the young people, these people want to do things differently must do, it is that introspection, really asking, how are we going to be different?
Yeah.
What are the values required? What is the ethical foundation required? What is the discipline required? What is the sincerity required? So that you begin to make that movement, not a frail movement, but something that is, real, something that is maybe happening in West Africa, although, of course, sometimes when militaries come onto the scene, people don't think that's democracy, but you can see some new ideas. So I think if young people rely on the existing structures, and I think I was a bit, yesterday I attended Kenya Human Rights Commission 30 years. And Professor Makau, was like advising that human rights activists and, these young people, should make a lot of conversation with the existing, leadership and all that kind of stuff. I was not sure,
whether that was the way to go.
I was not sure whether that was the way to go. But, Okoh was my student. We went also to school together at Harvard, and he's a very senior lawyer. But I think one has to be careful not to tell youth to go to places where they are going to be corrupted. So they have to find their path.
Professor Kivutha Kibwana is our guest this hour, and we are looking at, all right, youth in politics going into the future. What does that actually look like? And Prof, as we went to the break, just looking at the idea that a number of movements have come up, a number of ideas where youth are saying governance cannot continue this way in the country any longer. And so that people have said, okay, well then show us the way. But then it would appear as though those movements have not yet coalesced or come together in a way then that would be able to offer leadership. And we've seen those that came together very quickly have disintegrated just as quickly. What would be the panacea to all of this to say, okay, this is the way to go if you are offering alternate leadership, if you're offering alternate ways of governance, whether here in Kenya, anywhere in the world, these are the things then that you must have, follow, use, to make sure that, one, it doesn't disintegrate, and number two, that you're offering up something that can be used in country.
Mm-hmm. It's true. If one goes, let us say, to Ford, again, leadership ambition by the animators of that movement in the 90s, early 90s, got it disintegrated, and as a result, they gave Moi the opportunity to be president in 1992, 1997. Even when civil society helped to get multipartism back, and we began the journey, for the constitution. Again, some of the political opposition was able to quickly go and negotiate with Moi, the IPPG. Although one can say there were some good things coming out of it, like the Public Order Act kind of being muted so that people could meet more. The Electoral Commission then, opposition also supplying some of the members of it so that there could be more, fairness and so on. Even the NCC movement itself, because sometimes when there is a movement that promises substantive change, the political establishment uses all tricks to make sure that it doesn't, proceed. And I think one of the, most critical things that must happen is this time around, these young people, maybe slightly older people, who really want, change for the country, so that particularly we follow the constitution. Because the kind of change, the basic change that Kenya needs is just a group of leaders who are going to be faithful to the constitution, so that they do the things that, this constitution, which is praised as being one of the most progressive in the world, at least on the continent. One is just faithful. There's fidelity to it. So if the Gen Z leaders, if the more, the other people who also have that character historically of wanting different, wanting change, if they were to come together, and sometimes civil society also helps, helps a bit in terms of convening and so on. There are some older people who are not, people like former Chief Justice William Mutunga and so on, who can assist in terms of convening. You get like about 50 people. And then they say, the question is not that I'm going to be a president, because first of all, if you keep on saying I want to be the president and another one I want to be the president, leadership of a country is a huge thing. And if you just say I want to be a president, it's like an ego trip. So that you come together and you say whoever will be first among equal down the road it doesn't matter if we come together, we have a good manifesto, we are going to implement the constitution. We are really going to take the country away from the all that it is in. So, and even some people will come and say, I don't want to be a president. I just want to do any lifting.
Yes,
that is required.
I want to contribute to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that there is that. But and I can see, first of all, I believe that the young people are equal, to this particular task. Because if you look historically on the continent, Patrice Lumumba became the leader of, first PM of Republic of Congo at 35. Mandela at 24 was in ANC and later, of course, became the first black president. Gaddafi, some people criticize him, he did great things in Libya. He was a leader in Libya at 27. Sankara led Burkina Faso, at 34. There was the events organizer in Madagascar, Rajolina, who at 35 led a transitional authority which helped the country move forward, and he became president. Martin Luther King, 26, leading American civil rights movement. And when you go abroad, like Sebastian Kurz, Austrian chancellor at 31, Sanna Mirella, Marine, Finland's prime minister, 32. You can go for 34. You can go on. And as I said, Kibaki, at 30s, there were ministers and so on. So that future is there, but you have to safeguard it. And greed will not help. People beginning to say that I am doing my part because I think I'm the best, that will not help. And then the civic education needed, that's really the big thing. So that in the 1450 wards that we have, there are groups which go to do civic education. What is leadership? What kind of development do we need? What kind of country do we need? And young people can do that, and they are trying to do that, so that the people are prepared, so that the people become tribeless, like the young people who are tribeless, because that's one of the problems that hinders us from moving forward. Also the handouts, so that during election time, the handout thing is a history. And even if, some people give you money that they have got from somewhere, then you tell them that, that's still our tax. We are grateful, but we are not going to vote for you because of that. And I like what the church has begun to do, to say that if you bring money to the church, we are going to ask you, where did you get it? And in actual fact, we might say we don't want, money which can't be your salary. I think, that is really a good movement. I would now encourage the young people who are unhappy with the faith sector, to take one Sunday and, go to church, go to on a Friday, the mosque, go to on a Saturday, for Sabbath, and really say, yes, this is what we are telling you. And we want to tell the whole country, this is the route to ethics, to integrity, and stuff like that. So I think it is that just coming together, because the people who have different ideas are there, and to be very firm in terms of saying we are staying the course, so that when one is invited to sit at the table of the political establishment, like happened in the Bible when Daniel, Meshach, Abednego were told, come and, have wine and have some of these choice things. They said, no, we are not going to do that. I think we have to be uncompromising.
Let me ask the question. It is said that during the first 5 years of your administration in Makueni, you got to an impasse with your MCAs. I want you to narrate that story to us and to explain why you took the position that you took.
Well, it's a long story, but just to cut it short, the MCAs, and some of them were councillors before, there were people I knew, told me that now we have this county and we have money here. The people in Nairobi are eating, money there in Nairobi. So even us, we have to eat this money.
Yes.
Our money.
Yes, and then give the rest to the citizens. And we got an original budget of 4.3, I believe.
Billion.
And about 100 people, the MCAs and the staff, wanted 1B. So that the rest of the population, about 1 million, would have 3.3. So I told them, this is crazy. We came here to help our people because, we know the poverty, we know lack of health, we know all these things. And they told me, no, this is what happens. And Professor, you are not realistic. We are going to teach you. And in actual fact, without taking a lot of time, one of them was sent specially. And he told me, when you're taking hot tea, you do
First.
And in Kikamba, it is called kuvuva.
Kuvuva.
So yeah. So they came up with this theory of, when it's a small thing, you give us 5,000. When it's bigger, you give us 20, you give us 50. Actually, I realized that it was not going, they were not relenting. And I said to myself, I don't want to be a governor where we are not going to do anything. And so I, told the people, I want to quit because this is not tenable.
It's not working.
It's not working. It can't work. And that's when the people now collected signatures and took the signatures to Harambee House. The president called the Council of Governors and said, Makueni, this is what the people are saying, is this something that should be done? They said yes, because at that time, many governors were really being taken at ransom. And then, after that, the president appointed a commission. This was a Nyaoga commission, which went round, and they were told that this thing must be dissolved because also the constitution says so. They brought a report to the president that dissolution, this is what the people said. It was taken to parliament, and the parliament, said, okay, this is what they want. And so the President Uhuru, said, if we dissolve this county at the beginning of devolution, it might send the wrong message and there might be a run on all counties. Therefore, we will look for other solutions. And so that was the story. But afterwards, I think the MCAs, the County Assembly, realized that I was not going to relent. I was never going to relent. And so we began to form a relationship where we understood each other. And even later, in some of the measures that we took, we were the first county to get an auditor's report, the Auditor General's report of clean bill of health without any qualification. We even introduced a system of open contracting, so that when people ask for jobs, all the information would be available for anybody, so that if you're in the tender committee, your marks would be known, whoever was number one. So because it was not our money, and we didn't have like security contracts in Makueni, so there was nothing to hide. We said, this is the information that should be available. And of course, before this matter was resolved, they tried to impeach me. They also called for a meeting for leaders at the county assembly, and they didn't invite me, so I decided to go because I thought I was a leader still in the county. And they shot at us. 5 people were shot at. I was there.
Shot physically?
Shot physically.
Yes.
Shot.
Did anybody die?
No, fortunately. God, and I wasn't myself. I don't know. Because it's like when a kid is playing with a snake without knowing it's a snake.
Yeah.
Even for me, I thought it must be police shooting up. And I didn't, until I was pushed down. by actually the security guy who himself got shot.
Your security guy?
My security guy, my chief of staff then also, a bullet grazed his, those were the people on my side, both of them, other people at the back. So I think when people are fighting graft, they have to be prepared for everything.
Indeed. Do you think that what the nation needs now, and also from a youth perspective, whereby there's this clamor for, there is almost an innate desire to want to be able to lead in what would be the right way. Do you think that the nation is at the juncture where that needs to happen?
I think definitely yes, because the leadership that we have, and now it is of course buttressed by this recent handshake. I don't see the evidence of doing things different, and this is now 2 years going into the third year. And so given this continuing trend, something has to happen so that there is a content into the leadership that will give hope to the country. And I always, pray for a peaceful transition, because somewhere down the road we must transit. And I take hope in the fact that in the last elections, 2022, 8 million people, and they were young, didn't vote. About 3 to 4 million had not even gotten IDs or registered to vote, who are 18 and above. And then these Gen Zs, about 3 million, are going to be available over 18. The ones who because the Gen Zs are 12 to 27. So there are those who are now going to be, especially born from 2019, some will have reached 18.
Yes.
So you're talking about 14 to 15 million new voters. And if these guys have their ID, if these guys, are not prevented from having an ID, they're not prevented from having a voter's card, and then they say we are translating our street protests into a vote protest, then that is potentially a huge game changer. And I keep on saying that these young people in our country need to say this country deserves a national youth Marshall Plan for us, to really do things to genuinely look after the interests of young people, and so that they say we have this 15 million votes.
Yes.
And we are going to tell you that we want a social contract. You are going to deliver, a national Marshall Plan for youth, and of course, if you don't, then we are looking for, ourselves who are going to deliver that for ourselves. That is really what I think. And what disturbs me in conversation with some of the youth, they say that in June, July this year, they came in peace. And they just wanted, just do what the Constitution says. Don't be corrupt. We want integrity. We want a government that works for everybody. And of course, they were met with brutality. They are saying that in 2027, they are not going to come in peace.
Yes.
If they don't get their IDs, if they don't get the voter's card, then they will make sure that there's no election. And, of course, you tell them, some of these things, you have to think about them and consequences, blah, blah, blah. But they're saying, even you're not going to stand, you guys, whether you're baby boomers or you're silent generation or you're great generation or whatever you are. So there is reason to worry. And it's good for the leadership not to take these young people for granted.
There's always a subject of thought leadership in this conversation. And that's why I asked you about Makueni. Because when you take a position based on principle, it is thought leadership. You are introducing a concept that people may not be accustomed to, And the reason why you find that there's resistance is because clearly they're not accustomed to it and it doesn't suit their purpose. What happened on the 25th? That seemed to have been something that we hadn't seen in a long time. And the generation that were leading it were perhaps a little too young to understand what had happened prior to all the process that led to this new constitution.
That's correct.
Now, there is always a discussion about how do we choose leaders? What do we look for? And my question is, what position does thought leadership take in our understanding of who we should allow ourselves to be led by?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question because even for the young people who want to be leaders, you can't, for example, become MCA, MP of your rural constituency if that's where you want to begin your political leadership. If you're just in Nairobi, you have to be there.
To move.
You have to be there. You have to, do the things that those people do.
Yeah.
So that they know you, they feel you, they touch you, they test you, so to speak. And that's very, very, very critical because sometimes when you stay with people and they really, and those populations are not daft. They are able to say that, even when there's a wave, the so-called tribal waves, there are some people, they say that that's a good one. We are not going to lose that one because they are with us. And that point that we said about where you work on yourself so that when you present yourself to people, they can say, yes, we can see leadership. And some of the Gen Zs, even when they were saying they were leaderless and so on, you could see some leadership. And there was some also leadership which was derailed, which was was derailed. But I think in terms of even that discussion of what is a leader in terms of the civic education, like we talk, people say I'm a servant leader. And when you look at what they do, you don't see that servanthood and all that kind of stuff. It's just talk. So I think part of the civic education must be about, this leader who is ethical, ethical, tracing their history for some while. This leader who, is with the people. This leader who speaks the truth. This leader, who is empathetic. This leader, who does not minimize any constituency. And historically, we have had people, like that. And so, of course, there is the question of the role models. Young people say, sometimes they don't understand a lot of the history of the Mau Mau, the 90s, and so on. And that's something also to come out so that people can know. Because, so that, they don't have leaders of people who are flashy, wash, without naming names.
Exactly.
So that, we can begin to have, a crop that is going to really be of benefit to us.
Indeed. We want to thank you, Prof, for coming in this morning, because I think these are progressive conversations that need to continue, and thank you for being in the hot seat this morning.
Yes, and thank you very much. And I really wish Kenya's youth, Africa's youth, the best. Let them, take the torch, the baton, and move our continent forward.
Indeed.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.